Lake and Grace was down to her last $23 when the desperate knocking started. Through the peephole, she saw a man holding a limp child in his arms, both of them soaked to the bone. She had every reason to keep that door locked. A young woman alone, in a dangerous neighborhood, with barely enough food for herself. But when she saw that little boy's pale face, she opened the door anyway. She had no idea that the man standing there owned half the city, and that her life was about to change in ways she never imagined. Let's go back to where it all began. Lake and Grace, 22 years old, living alone in a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. After losing her parents in a car accident 2 years ago, Laken had been struggling to make ends meet, working double shifts at a local diner, barely earning enough to cover rent and utilities. Her apartment was small, but it was clean. She had a fold-out couch, a tiny kitchen, and just enough space for one person. Laken had learned to live with very little, but she had something that money couldn't buy, a heart that always wanted to help others. On this particular November evening, the worst storm in decades was hitting the city. The wind was howling, rain was pounding against her windows, and Laken was curled up on her couch, trying to stretch her last can of soup into dinner. At 9:47 p.m., 3 desperate knocks echoed through her apartment. Laken hesitated. Who would be out in this weather? She opened the door to find a man in his mid-30s, completely soaked, holding a small boy who couldn't have been more than 6 years old. The child was shivering violently and looked pale. The man's voice was urgent. "Please, I'm sorry to bother you, but my car broke down 3 blocks away. My son has a fever, and I can't find any hotels with vacancy. I saw your light on. Could we please just wait until morning?" Laken looked at the child's flushed face and made a decision that would change everything. "Come in, quickly," she said, not even thinking about the risk. Laken immediately sprang into action. She gave the man who introduced himself as Jace her only clean towel and pulled out her warmest blanket for little Harlow Quinn. She prepared the last of her soup for the sick child and offered Jace her only chair while she insisted on sleeping on the floor. "Your son needs the couch," she said simply. Throughout the night, Laken checked on Harlow's fever, gave him water, and even sang him a lullaby her mother used to sing to her. Jace watched in amazement as this stranger cared for his son as if he were her own. The next morning, Harlow's fever had broken. As Laken prepared her last 2 eggs for breakfast, Jace tried to offer her money for her kindness. "I can't accept that," Laken said firmly. "I didn't help you for money. I helped because it was the right thing to do. Besides, you would have done the same for me." Jace was puzzled. In his world, everyone had an angle, everyone wanted something. But Laken genuinely expected nothing in return. Before we continue with what happens next, if you're enjoying Laken's incredible story, smash that like button and let me know in the comments. Would you have opened your door that night? And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing real-life stories that will restore your faith in humanity. A tow truck arrived to help with Jace's car. As they prepared to leave, Harlow hugged Laken tightly. "Thank you for taking care of me," he whispered. Jace shook Laken's hand. "I will never forget your kindness," he said, looking directly into her eyes. "Never?" Laken waved goodbye from her doorway, thinking she'd never see them again. She had no idea that Jace had spent the entire night awake, not just worried about his son, but thinking about how he could repay this extraordinary young woman. 3 weeks later, Laken's financial situation had gotten worse. The diner where she worked was cutting hours, and she was behind on rent. Her landlord, Silas Monroe, had given her a final notice. "You have until Friday to pay $1,200 or you're out," he said coldly. Laken had worked every available shift, but she only had $400 to her name. That Thursday evening, Laken sat in her apartment, looking at eviction papers, wondering where she would go. She had no family, no close friends with space to spare. For the first time since her parents died, she felt completely alone. The next morning, there was a knock at her door. Laken opened it to find a well-dressed woman holding an envelope. "Miss Grace?" I'm Briar Elise from Holloway Development Group. I have something for you. Inside the envelope was a check for $50,000 and a letter that read, Dear Lakin, you showed kindness to a stranger and his son when you had nothing to gain. This is not charity. This is a recognition of your character. Please accept this as a small token of gratitude and use it to pursue your dreams. Lakin's hands trembled as she read the signature. Jace Holloway, CEO, Holloway Development Group. Lakin couldn't believe it. She researched Holloway Development Group online and discovered that Jace Holloway was worth over $200 million. His company was responsible for half the major construction projects in the state. The article she found mentioned that Jace was a single father who had built his empire from nothing after his wife died in childbirth. He was known for his philanthropy, but rarely appeared in public. Lakin realized that the night she helped them, Jace had been driving back from a business meeting when his luxury car broke down. He could have called any number of people for help, but the storm had knocked out cell towers. That afternoon, Lakin's phone rang. It was Jace. Lakin, I hope you received my small gift. I also wanted to tell you that I've been thinking about our conversation that night. You mentioned you had studied business in college before your parents passed away. I'm starting a new foundation focused on helping young people who show exceptional character. I'd like to offer you a position as our first program director. The salary is $80,000 a year, plus full benefits. Lakin was speechless. Not only had Jace saved her from eviction, but he was offering her a chance to build a meaningful career. 6 months later, Lakin was thriving in her new role. The Holloway Foundation had already helped over 100 young people get back on their feet. Lakin had moved into a beautiful apartment and was finally financially stable. But the most rewarding part was her relationship with Jace and Harlow. They had become like family to her. Harlow, now fully recovered, often visited Lakin at the foundation office, and Jace had become not just her boss, but a trusted friend and mentor. 1 year later, at the foundation's first annual gala, Jace stood up to speak. This foundation exists because of one person's kindness, he said, looking at Lakin. Lakin taught me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in the compassion we show to others. Lakin realized that the night she opened her door to strangers, she hadn't just helped them. She had opened the door to her own future. As she looked around the room filled with young people whose lives had been transformed by the foundation, Lakin understood a profound truth. When we give from the heart, expecting nothing in return, the universe has a way of giving back in ways we never imagined. If Lakin's story touched your heart, show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing for more incredible stories of kindness and unexpected miracles. And tell me in the comments, what's the most unexpected kindness someone has ever shown you? Your story might inspire our next video. Lakin's story reminds us that kindness is never wasted. It might be forgotten by those who receive it, but it's always remembered by those who give it. And sometimes, just sometimes, one small act of kindness can change not just one life, but hundreds. What act of kindness will you perform today? You never know whose life you might change, including your own.